right. Are we doing this?
We're doing it. Man, I love that sound.
I know. I think Addison did a really good job of pulling that together for us. But I guess we're back. It's been, another few weeks. Some wild football that we've been able to watch over the playoffs or whatever as we got into it. But it's time to talk Dynasty, at least for a few minutes today. So we're back. Chris Allen, Adam Wilde, trying to answer some of your questions for the Dynasty League football forums. And I mean, we got a few questions tonight and also just some general topic discussions that we'll be covering.
Yep.
But hopefully we'll be able to lay out a more consistent schedule now that we're getting into the non-points scoring season.
Yeah, it's our season, our time.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get into some more of the prospects, identifying some of the profiles and players that we're going to be adding to our rookie rosters here shortly. So I'm ready to dive into it, man.
Man, I'm so excited. It seems like just yesterday we were talking about the 2020 class and how amazing it was supposed to be, how you could capitalize on how amazing it was supposed to be. And here we are, 2021. So, all right, well, we're back in it. Let's jump into the first question.
Yeah, so we got.
First question, when do you consider roster needs during a rookie draft? He's got a little more information that we'll add in there. So he needs a QB2, but at 109, should he be capitalizing on value like Javonte Williams or Kyle Pitts instead of taking a QB like Jones or Trask if there was a QB run early, assuming this is Superflex 2? So QB2 or Superflex, what do you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this over the past couple-ish seasons, if not for this particular show, but when we were doing DOM.
Yeah,
I think it's really more of you really have to try and identify that value in those drafts and kind of leave your position or your roster out of it. But that's more for the first round, I would think. Once you get into this, the second round, the third round. That's where you can kind of make some you can take a look at your roster, see what adjustments you may need to make. And then if you are looking for a wide receiver or if you're looking for a quarterback, then maybe make a selection there. But I would think especially for your first pick, you try and get as much value out of it as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think it does get tougher as the rounds go on to draft for need, though, because like in the second round last year, we had a lot of value. I mean, we had Gibson, who we could – assume was going to have at least a little bit of a role even before Darius Geis is, getting put in jail. And then we also had someone like Laviska Shenault. Even at 201, you had someone like Ruggs, who I thought was going to produce early. So last year was a little different than normal because in the second round you could still get, quote unquote producers. But in my opinion, I believe you should always just draft for value. And the reason for that is you might have a tier of 7 players. Sometimes you do have a tier of like 7 players where the top 7 are whatever. They're you pick a name out of a hat almost. The 101 and the 102, 103 are usually pretty firm, but overall the top 7 you might have a really solid core of players. But then the 8th one might be a huge drop off. The 10th, 12th player in the first round might be a huge drop off. You don't really want to pick a player that's part of that huge drop off because they fit your team better. Maybe the first 7 are, a couple QBs. You've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got Fields in there, and then you want all the skill position players. You don't want to bypass all those skill position players for someone like Trask. You could be fine, but you're missing on, quote unquote, surefire skill position players in there. The fact of the matter is you could probably trade back if you have a position of need. So my opinion, where I try to meet in the middle with people who have that opinion where you draft for need, which is fine, but draft for need at that player's quote-unquote ADP. I know ADP is going to be different in every league, but if you feel like you need a QB and you feel like you like Trask and his ADP's 109, well, don't draft him at 106. Try to trade back to the 109. I mean, you could really take anything because you were going to take the guy at 106 anyway. So if you're set on filling a roster need and that player is projected to go 11, 12, 201, something like that, go ahead and trade back. Get whatever you can because you're going to draft that player anyways. So that's my opinion on drafting for need.
Yeah, I guess to go back because you made a good point in that the 2020 class was definitely one of those where I mean, you could get a pretty solid contributor, like if not for this season, but you can kind of look ahead. So the guys like Laviska, where they didn't really come on till later on in the season, but we can see a path to him continuing to produce and produce more like in 2021, especially assuming they get Lawrence.
Right.
But I mean, there was depth in this class.
Right.
Can we really say? I don't know if we can say the same for the 2021 class. So I think that, to your point, trying to always look at your draft picks from a value perspective is the best way to look at it, because again, you don't know what you're going to wind up getting out of those picks. So trying to, I guess, pigeonhole yourself into saying that, well, I have to get a wide receiver here, like in the second round, because that's what I need on my roster. It might wind up making you take a suboptimal pick at that point.
Yep. Stephen Duke says, always go value. Otherwise, people like Pittman fall to the second, like he did in a couple super flex drafts out there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can buy Pittman low, but you could still buy Pittman for a reasonable price, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one's a doozy. This is actually my question. I don't have any idea, but we're going to figure it out by the end of the show. How are we evaluating players who opted out of the 2020 college football season? Jamar Chase, main example, we could probably talk about, especially since there were a lot of Devonta Smith, haters out there. People who were very smart who had good reasons to dislike him, especially when you put him head to head with Jamar Chase. But Jamar Chase sits out the year. Devonta Smith wins the Heisman. Okay, that made things a little bit tougher, right? I mean, I'll just start with my question with this. You don't know what they were doing, right? Like, you would like to assume maybe he even got more time to train, more individualized training, 2-a-days, bigger, faster, stronger type of thing. But he also wasn't practicing in pads, probably wasn't practicing with his team for sure.
Right.
Wasn't playing real football. I don't know if that's better or worse. We've never seen this. So I don't know, but we're going to be tasked with evaluating it. I mean, fortunately, Jamar Chase is, amazing. So that helps us. But he's not the only player coming out this year that opted out last year. And we've got to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where looking at some of those advanced metrics like breakout age, dominator rating, or even just looking at like simplistic stuff like how many targets they were able to earn within their own offenses. I mean, but that's more for the skill position players, right? But then for running backs, how many yards they were able to produce like within their team's total. I mean, so stuff like that you can go out and try and find and see, well, if this, let's say, all things considered, let's say if this player were coming out this year, no opt-out or whatever, where would you have them ranked? Like in the current pool of players,
right?
Assuming all things equal, like would that, based off of their production before they opted out, would you even consider them a first rounder, second rounder, and so on and so forth? And if we're not even getting to that point, like prior to that, then I don't know how we can try and push them up in our ranks at this point, given that we've had a whole season of now we've seen production from these other guys, like you had mentioned beforehand.
But that's fair. So do you just give them the stats that they got the last season that they played, and you just assume that they did that again this year, because you have to get 4 years of accrued data on these players. You want that for your evaluation. Is it fair to do that? Just give it to them again. Give them 2019 and 2020 again, and just, I guess you can't really assume that they were going to do the same thing.
Right. But I'm just saying as a baseline to say that, all right, well, have these guys even started to get into having that high dominator rating or getting to that 30 to 35% of their team's total yards? I mean, if they're not even encroaching on some of those thresholds that we would consider them to be first rounders, second rounders, or whatever, then it's hard for me to even consider them with the guys that actually did that this season. That's what I'm saying.
That's fair. But also what we need to remember is that real NFL teams are doing exactly what you and I are doing right now. And draft stock matters so much for us, and it's something that we have no control over. We can't project. So we also have no idea how these NFL teams are going to view these players that opted out. And I don't think every NFL team's going to be understanding and view it in a positive light. There's not all NFL organizations are smart, run by decent humans. So, I could definitely see some NFL teams looking at it as a negative, even though it clearly is not, to make a decision on your own,
Well, yeah, because
mental and physical health. But players could certainly drop because of opting out.
Yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, even the guys that played this season, if they played well, they played poorly. I mean, there's so much subjectivity that goes into some scouting departments that even the data that they collect on the guys that actually played is already suspect. So think about how much projection would go into guys that they haven't seen in literally a year. And now with this talk of the combine being, let's say, either canceled altogether, abbreviated, or what have you.
Probably mostly like mental stuff, which is more useless in my opinion.
Right. So unless these guys laid down just absolutely flawless tape in 2019, I mean, I could easily see a lot of teams just completely passing them by and then just waiting until day 3 or whenever in order to start picking up some of those guys, unless you were a stud athlete like the guys at the top, like the Jamar Chases of the world.
Right, and it's fair to assume that Jamar Chase's draft stock's not affected whatsoever, because the last time they saw him on the field, he was absolutely amazing with a larger dominator rating and target share than Justin Jefferson, if I recall correctly. So seeing what Justin Jefferson did in the NFL, some NFL front offices and coaching staffs are looking at that and saying, well, he was better than Justin Jefferson. I mean, you can't really do that, but these front offices might. Honestly, they might say, look what Justin Jefferson did in the NFL. And we know that the last time Jamar Chase was on the field, he was better than Justin Jefferson in a lot of aspects. Yeah. Maybe that goes into keeping his draft stock at a respectable position. In all fairness, he's probably going to go top 10-ish still, but there's going to be more guys that we have to worry about this with. We've got another comment here. Wonder if Damian Williams comes back with a solid role still. Well, this is something you and I talk about a lot, because we drafted CEH in that league, and then we took Damian Williams in like the 9th or something. Yeah. So, but he hadn't opted out yet. Is that correct?
No, it was I think it was like the week before.
Right.
Opted out was when we had that. Yeah.
Pros versus yes, because then we also drafted Washington.
Yeah.
Yep.
That did not work out for us.
No, that did not work out for us because we did not draft Le'Veon Bell. Shame on us for not knowing the future. Okay, right. So the question, I think that he probably does. That was a concern with CEH. That's why we were going to – we did trade him.
Yeah, we wound up trading him to Leone, I thought.
We did. We traded Michael Thomas, and we traded CEH, and we got Saquon Barkley, and
I forget what else we got back in that deal.
Good wide receiver. Which good wide? CD Lamb.
That's it. Yeah, that's what it was.
We got back CD, Saquon, and maybe something else. So yes, we did. We did believe that CEH was going to cede some work to Damian Williams. People forget that they like Damian Williams a lot. I mean, he probably should have been their Super Bowl MVP. I feel like we were talking to a wall when we were having this discussion a lot. A lot of people didn't think that it was going to matter, but I mean, CH is fantastic. I can't believe they haven't used him in the passing game. I know you can discuss that a little bit because I saw you talking about it on Twitter a little bit, but I just don't think that they need a workhorse running back. So just because we need a workhorse running back in Dynasty does not mean that the Chiefs only want to use CEH.
Yeah, and that was part of my write-up for, well, not that particular narrative, but just like part of my write-up for this week's article for Roto World was that like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I'm hoping that he bounces back in 21 because it's not just the rushing, like his rushing success rate, like it fluctuated, it slightly improved. Yeah. I think he was at like 44%, then went to like to 49% or something along those lines. Yeah. So he's slightly improved as a runner, and we saw more of like the short yardage success towards the back half of the season, and that was fine. And like what we expected to see from him as a runner, but it's his passing game usage that I don't particularly understand.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, because like Damian Williams, like for all of his faults and like disappearances like throughout the regular season, like he was a pretty big part of their passing offense. I think I counted it was like 25% of his targets were actually like actual like legit deep ball targets, like 15 air yards or more. You want to know how many like Clyde Edwards-Helaire had in his rookie season?
Well, I know the answer because I read it. How many?
0 catchable targets. Like he's had one, which was essentially just a throwaway from Patrick Mahomes, but he has like 0 catchable targets on deep balls. So like there's already been like I read an article from Ben Solak, and I've seen like other folks like floating the same like conspiracy. I call it a conspiracy theory because it does make some sense that like Andy Reid would just kind of hold back like Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the passing game until they got to the playoffs, because it just doesn't make any sense as to why like Edwards-Helaire's ADOT is like 0.6
Right.
when like Damian Williams was like 8.4 like last just the season beforehand. And when you looked at like CEH when he was at LSU, the dude was catching passes left and not just like dump offs. Like these were legit routes like that he was catching from Burrow.
In the slot and out wide.
Yeah. So that's the part that's the part that I don't understand. And like to me, like the moment I think it was actually Davis Maddock that I saw him like tweet this out that like using
Damian.
I know, and he's also a Damian truther like myself. But like when he said that, I mean, their usage of CEH actually makes the Chiefs' offense work. Like it makes it worse. Yeah. He got a point. I mean, because we saw, I mean, especially over the last like month or so, how they essentially just like sleptwalk like through the last like 4 games.
Why hand it off ever?
Yeah. But they shouldn't have to do that. But if this is their way of essentially, I guess, changing their offense so that they're holding back, like using CEH as a dynamic pass catcher, which we know that he can be, then okay, I can buy. That's a narrative. I mean, that's probably like a Sigmund Bloom like narrative street that I can walk down.
I don't think that a team could do that because every week their job is on the line. The player's job's on the line. The coach's job on the line. If I'm Andy Reid and the game goes sour once and I know how impressive CEH is out of the backfield, he's getting the ball.
Yeah.
What's happening is bad things are happening when they hand CEH the ball. I don't necessarily believe that it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire's fault, but we saw week 1 he got 5 carries inside the 1.
Yeah.
And just stuffed. And I mean, that was kind of the whole year. But we also have to remember, sick once, not with COVID, but I believe he was sick for 2 weeks because I played him in Showdown, and he was active, quote unquote, with
that was week like 12, 13.
Yeah, with a stomach ache. And then he had another injury that I can't remember. So we only got a small glimpse of fully healthy CEH. So he's a lot better than what we've seen. He should not have been drafted so highly as he was. I mean, it came down to what type of person you are you landing spot, are you talent? He had a great landing spot, and he was pretty talented. But pre-draft, he was the running back 5, and it missed everybody's rankings, everybody's models. You bumped him all the way up to 1 when he landed with the Chiefs. I'm not saying in hindsight that was wrong, and I'm not saying that it's not going to work out. But the problem is, if you drafted him at his peak, which he was drafted at his peak, where's the value now? You're stuck holding the bag. That's why I felt really good. Our deal was pretty much the only deal you could get done because Saquon was hurt. I guess we could have tried to do the same thing with CMC, but that deal doesn't get done for Kamara. It's not going to get done for probably Eckler. We had to trade for an injured player. It had to be CMC or Saquon because nobody was willing to trade a contributing, running back that's, sandwiched right around him in ADP. These running backs with ADPs right next to him, you couldn't trade for them with CEH because he shouldn't have been drafted that high to begin with. There was no room to grow. So I guess back to the question, I do think that Damian will have a role, but I think that CEH will be far more efficient, and it's just unbelievable that he's not catching the ball. He's going to catch the ball.
Yeah, these next few games, assuming he's back, because I think he plays this weekend. and if he plays and his usage is different in the passing game, then that's all we need to know about what Andy Reid thinks of him as as a part of the Chiefs offense. If he comes back and it's still just those, 1 to 2 yard dump offs or like those screen passes behind the line of scrimmage, then forget it. I'm out.
Yeah, he does need to hire ADOT because he is hurting the offense, in my opinion. You don't have to run the ball. I mean, we saw the Steelers were an 11-0 team, essentially not running the ball whatsoever. And when they did try to run the ball, it was minus even. So the Chiefs don't have to run the ball, so they need to get him involved. Here we go. We went Reagor over Jefferson. Got injured right as I picked him. I don't know about the omens, but I think it was kind of a toss-up. I mean, even if you discussed that week 3, Jefferson had a horrible first 2 weeks, and people were done with him. So, I mean, I don't know that was a bad move, and I think Reagor's going to end up being phenomenal. Hopefully, Jalen Hurts sticks, but I read a piece that says that the Peterson firing was basically just Jalen Hurts versus Carson Wentz.
Interesting.
That was from Aikman. So who knows how much accuracy, but apparently Aikman talked to Peterson, and Peterson thought that going forward with Hurts was the way to go. Yeah. And I forget the name of the owner, but they thought that Wentz was the way to go. But of course the owner thinks Wentz is the way to go because he owes him $100 million. So
yeah. So here's a question then. So let's say that there's some folks out there that they made that draft pick, right?
Yeah.
Like they went Reagor over Jefferson. They're feeling stuck. Or let's say, or even for folks that drafted CEH like over JT, and basically that they want to redo at this point. Do you see any merit to going to? It's probably much different for running backs, but let's say in the case of Reagor versus Jefferson, I mean, do you go as the person with Reagor on your squad? I mean, what do you think it takes in order to get Jefferson? You basically paying.
It's a non-starter, to be honest.
Twice, you basically paying twice what you paid in order to get Reagor.
Probably more, unfortunately. I think it's a non-starter for now, but that goes to show you that I don't think that you're going to get CH at much of a discount because people paid so tremendously much. But Reagor played injured. He was injured. He missed games with injury. So he just got to see glimpses of it. And if people weren't paying too much attention to those glimpses, it didn't look like too terribly of a good season for Reagor. I wouldn't be surprised to see some owners out there in some leagues that are calling Reagor a bust, and that would be a horrible mistake for them. So I would.
Yeah, I've seen talks of that like already, and I think there were a couple of film guys that were talking about Reagor kind of pulling up on his routes, rounding off routes, not making sharp cuts.
Yeah, but wasn't it a lower body injury?
It was, and also I thought he had a hand injury or something like that.
He did, but we can look into it. I could have sworn that he missed some time with the lower body injury.
The point is, I'm already seeing those narratives being floated around about. I mean, why did there was a. I don't know if it was a Twitter thread or a report that came out that the Eagles were basically split on whether they take Reagor or Jefferson. Like Jefferson was one of the guys. I think it was like a scouting department versus, it was like a Peterson versus Howie thing or something like that.
No, I mean, I think that it would have been perfectly fair to take Justin Jefferson first. Didn't we have Justin Jefferson? I think everyone mocked Justin Jefferson to the Eagles. It was a huge surprise because everyone mocked Reagor to the Vikings. It was going to be those two. It's just that everybody thought that it was going to be Jefferson over Reagor. I don't have a problem with taking Reagor over Jefferson in rookie drafts. Reagor was going like 108, 109 in some leagues, and Justin Jefferson was like 11 and 12 in some leagues. So if you weren't in the minority, we just got really lucky with Justin Jefferson in Superflex leagues. And to the point of poking the bear with with Jalen Reagor, you should definitely be asking around to see how owners feel about their draft decision, especially since they'll be salty that they missed out on Justin Jefferson. And
that whole offense is in turmoil right now, so now would be the time to throw out some offers. If you believe in Reagor, I mean, now would kind of be that time to start throwing out offers when, I mean, they're going through head coaching change. I mean, the GM and owner are apparently duking it out. We don't know what their quarterback situation is going to look like. So, I mean, and also, I mean, what we're assuming that they're going to be dumping off Alshon Jeffrey
Right.
because of his contract.
Oh, yeah,
and so,
he's gone.
So
he
he's
might be out
gone.
of the league, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I liked him,
So
but-
I think there's plenty. There's at least a decent case to be made for Jalen Reagor, like being one of those guys. So you try and throw out those offers now, buy low, and see what happens.
Yep. All right, let's catch up on these comments. It's going to take Reagor +2 first from John O2. What's up, John? You are probably you might be right, but I would definitely send Justin Jefferson for depends on the first. I mean, if it's 11 and 12, maybe not, but if
Reagor first and like a player or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a early to mid first and then a late first, I think I would do that. I think that'd be a pretty smart move. Best landing spot for JuJu was another question that we could go forever. Here's the easy answer with JuJu. He's gonna fit into any system, in my opinion. We've already seen him on the outside. We've already seen him playing almost exclusively slot this year, right? I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but
he had like a 90% slot rate.
Yeah, a lot of slot. He was looking like Wes Welker out there this year, and he didn't look bad doing it. I mean, I know a lot of people think that his season was bad because he didn't have those 37-point games until the last week of the season or the playoffs. I mean, but
his 8 out was like 5 and some change or something.
Right, it was but the whole team's 8 out was 8. I think.
Eric Ebron was catching like deeper passes than JuJu was.
Yeah, but Roethlisberger's average depth of target was like.
He was living off volume.
It was like 8 on the season or something.
Yeah,
so I can't buy too much into that as much as I would buy into just Roethlisberger's arm wasn't there and the running game wasn't there. So JuJu is going to fit wherever he goes. So you asked about Houston, Jax, Miami. So Houston, I don't know what Houston's going to do. Let's see if they keep Deshaun Watson first.
I mean, Houston, they're already paying a ton for a slot wide receiver in Randall Cobb.
Are they? His contract can't be that big. What is it, $6 million for 2 years?
Yeah, but I mean, they're already pretty much like hugging the cap as it is, I thought.
Well, yeah, but they let Kenny Stills go too.
Yeah,
they do kind of need wide receiver, but they're not spending up. If they lose to Deshaun Watson, they're rebuilding, so they're not going to spend big in free agency. Send him to the Jets. You said the Jets or the Jags?
The Jets. What's wrong with the Jets? I mean, at this point, I mean, if they're already talking about moving on from Darnold, Gase is gone. I mean, they've got Mims. I mean,
I'm so down to buy Jets players.
I mean, I don't think that's like the Gaseless Jets don't seem like the worst landing spot.
Dude, he was the problem, and they're not. So Darnold's probably safe now. You'd have to say, right? So the Jets are going to have the second pick. Are they going to waste the second pick on? Not to say Fields isn't incredible, but are you going to use the second pick on Fields when you haven't given a fair crack to Darnold? I think the new coaching staff is coming with Darnold, right?
I don't know. It depends. I mean, I would think that if they hire a new coach, that they wind up going with Fields. They want to start fresh.
What do you get for Darnold? I guess that's the real question. If they're not going to get anything for him,
I don't know. I mean, because he could wind up going. I would say he winds up going the same route that Josh Rosen did. I mean, but actually, he's Rosen plus to me.
Well, yeah, Darnold's actually shown flashes of being solid with probably the worst possible situation you could have put the guy in.
I mean, he's not tall, so he's really not like Elway's type. But send him over to Denver.
No, he's not. He won't go to Denver because he's not tall. But you do have to think it's going to be really hard for quarterbacks to get into the league that aren't mobile anymore. And honestly, Sam Darnold has, I guess, plus mobility technically because he can move, but he's not going to move like Justin Fields. He's not going to move like, essentially any of the guys coming. Trevor Lawrence, he's not going to move like him. So maybe you're right. A new coaching staff might want Justin Fields to build an offense around somebody mobile. That's kind of why you're seeing Hurts.
And actually, you know what? Now that I think about it a little bit more, if they could find a way to get out from it, I don't know what all the like if there's any opt out clause or anything like that with Cousins' contract, but send him to Minnesota. Like he doesn't need a lot, but I think he could be functional.
What's the? I gotta look at Thielen's contract. He's got to be. No, I think he did. I think he got an extension recently.
Yeah, I think he's got like maybe 2 more, like 21 and then 22.
Yeah, I think he had a 3-year extension counting this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean,
send him to Minnesota.
But the thing is, he actually did most of his damage playing outside, if I recall correctly. So I don't think he would mind going to play outside. He even said in some interview this year, he brought it up on his own that he does miss playing outside. Yeah. So I wouldn't mind him going somewhere to play outside.
I don't mind him going to the Steelers as well, as O2 pointed out. Like I wouldn't mind him in that spot either.
Oh,
they're gonna, Darnold to the Steelers.
Yeah, I could see that. I could certainly see JuJu going to Washington, but we're not going to know who the quarterback is there. I just think they're going to be buyers in the wide receiver market. Yeah. But who knows who? Now, remember, we also have Galladay and Robinson, who we did a mailbag episode on the last time we were here, who are going to be free agents as well. Who's going to be the cheapest out of them? Anybody's guess, but it's not going to be JuJu. Is he 23?
Yeah. Yes.
23, and the dude's already a veteran, and he's been incredible. So he's going to be expensive, and that's probably why he's not going to stay with the Steelers, is only because they would love to have him back, but he's going to cost way too much to justify keeping him for his cost with hitting on Claypool and Deontay. And they love James Washington, who we were here this time last year. We have a mailback episode saying we prefer James Washington at cost over Deontay at cost. It didn't quite work out for us, but James Washington was going like 100 picks after Deontay, and they essentially had the same position on the depth chart. So I don't think that was a bad call at the time. I was watching the game and saw James Washington just being a stud out there. I was like, man, it only took the playoffs for our pick to come to fruition.
Yeah, I'm hoping he goes to I think James Washington on another team after he's done there, I think would be a good spot. I mean, a good route for him to go. I don't think he should stay with the Steelers.
Yeah, I don't know that he should either. He was one of my favorites. I botch it every time, but the Blitznikoff award winner? Blitznikoff award winner. Yeah. He was an incredible one to scout. All right, what else
do we have? Send him to Baltimore.
Oh, let's get this one. And someone's starting up their first Dynasty League. Ooh. Having separate vet and rookie draft. At what round are rookie draft picks more valuable than vet picks? Well, I'll let you go first, Chris. I've actually done a couple of these, so I've got a take.
So I've done a couple of these, and for at least for me personally, once you get to around I think it was around the 4th round, I think that's when we start to see a bit more of a blend between those rookie and vet picks start to blend in a bit more. But I think it was those first few rounds where, I mean, it essentially almost looked like just a normal, almost like a redraft league where we're just kind of picking the skill position players. But then I think once we got into, I think it was around 3rd round, 4th round, somewhere in there, maybe 4th round, 5th round, was when you start to see it blend a bit more.
Yeah, so it's interesting that it is a rookie pick. I like when the rookies themselves are in it. One thing that I noticed in my Superflex League startup that had rookies, not rookie draft picks in it, in Superflex, there were multiple skill position players going ahead of Joe Burrow, Tua, Herbert. But if you had done a rookie draft, the 101 unanimously would have been Burrow. 102 might have probably maybe been Tua, but he still would have been in the top 4.
Yeah.
And then Herbert would have been 6 or 7. For some reason, I don't know if it's that in startups people get their quarterbacks, the actual quarterbacks that they want to play now. So they're nervous to take a rookie because you have to take Joe Burrow in the 3rd, right? But that might be your first quarterback you take. But all the chips on the table if you do that. So that was interesting. But since it's picks, I think that unanimously a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time are going to say that you will find value in the rookie picks in these. You just have to be willing, because it does take a certain amount of like gumption to do it, because you're going to have the 101 sandwich between, like, who are some guys that we might see around the 101, like maybe even like Chubb by the time that the season comes around. You might have right around a guy like Nick Chubb. Shoot, you might even get, if it's anything like this year, it might even get up to Saquon Barkley after the injury. I don't remember how high his ADP is after missing a season. But anyways, there's going to be very good names around the 101. So it's going to take a lot of courage to take them, but you will get value on like the 102, 103. And especially if someone else takes the 101, it's almost like a train after that. And
yeah, because I think I know I don't know what it was like for your league, but I know for mine it was, you know, all the vets and stuff were going through, and then to be quite honest, I mean, because it was a slow draft, it didn't really dawn on me until I saw that first pick, and then it was like, oh shit, and then it's just like 101, 102, maybe a couple of picks, 3, 4, 5, and then a couple of picks. I mean, because folks, they get into this groove where they're like, oh, okay, well, I just saw DK Metcalf go, so let me try and get, you know, my, you know, decent young wide receiver that I can pick up. And, oh, like, it's tight end premium. Okay, so I got to get a tight end. Oh, wait, the 101 just went. Oh, and now I have to think about rookies.
Right.
It's almost like you have to play like 3D chess where you're –
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, where you're having to, like, gauge your roster, but then you're having to account for not just veterans like legit veterans, like the, you know, the older guys in the league, but you're also thinking about the younger guys, trying to blend in some age, and then you also have to look at the rookies too.
Yeah, so Talon, my advice is to just do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. To be quite honest with you, if there's a long run of rookies, don't jump on a rookie pick. Just go ahead and take the player that you know, probably could have gone ahead of those rookie picks. If people are waiting too long, what I'm noticing in startups with rookie picks in them is that people don't take the first rookie picks until you get to a player that people aren't necessarily comfortable with drafting. They want to draft all the surefire guys first, quote unquote surefire, because no one's surefire. But a perfect example would be like Mixon. People like to get to the Joe Mixon tier before they start taking the 101. But if you go back in hindsight afterwards and you look at the draft, there's probably 5, 6, 7 players that you would have rather taken the 101 than that player. But in the draft, when it's this player or the 101, it's just harder to do. It's harder to say, I'm going to take this number, this 1.01, instead of, you know, a talented young Nick Chubb or something like that. But, you know, just think about in hindsight when you're looking at the draft, you're going to look back and you're going to see, am I going to see 5 or 6 players that I would have rather had the 101 for? Okay, well, then you probably should have just took the 101. You know, you're going to have to feel it out. But whatever everyone else is doing, take a pivot.
That's what I was just about to think of, like a process that you could possibly apply to, I guess, drafting the 101, like whether it's like a person or a pick. And I mean, so here, I mean, I don't know, roll with me on this one for a minute. Yeah. So here's, I think this is the right ADP. So yeah, January 21 Startup Dynasty ADP, DLF.com. So let's say, Adam, give me, who do you think, I mean, we're projecting now, January 14th, 2021. Who do you think is going to be the 101 for this season? Doesn't have to be like a fire take or anything like that, but just think of somebody that's legit at the top.
Probably Chase, probably Jamar Chase.
Okay, so Jamar Chase. We're thinking Jamar Chase. Can't think of. I mean,
maybe not. I'm changing. It doesn't matter for the exercise. We'll say Jamar Chase.
Okay, let's say Jamar Chase. Decent landing spot. Now I'm thinking off. Let's see, good landing spot off the top of my head.
Cincinnati.
All right, sure.
Cincinnati.
Absolutely. So we're thinking Jamar Chase, 101. He goes to Cincinnati. So scrolling through some of these players, I mean, where would the cutoff be that you would want to then you would put your chips down and say, hey, instead of drafting a vet, I'm going to draft the 101.
We've got to change it to a running back because it's totally different. It's totally different. Let's do it. ETN goes to a solid spot. What's a really
goes to Houston, assuming they keep Deshaun.
Perfect. Because here's the thing. Jamar Chase might need to be the 101. N'Keal Harry, we thought should have been the 101. But
Yeah,
when it comes to draft time, people just can't do it. People just won't do it. So we'll do a running back in a good spot. So ETN goes to Houston.
Yeah, ETN goes to Houston.
Where we comfortable.
Yeah, so where we feel comfortable about this. I mean,
so start at the top. This is my exercise, and I'm sure plenty of people who've been doing it just as long as me might have a different way of doing it. But if there's draft picks in the draft, I just literally go down the line and pretend I'm trading for the 101. And I get to the point where would I trade this player straight up for the 101?
So just looking at the running backs, I mean, J.K. Dobbins.
I would probably be right there with Dobbins, but I'd go over Henry. Definitely over Henry.
Okay.
Probably close to A.J. Brown, close to Justin Jefferson, over Swift.
You saying you want ETN over all those guys?
Yeah. In Houston, all by himself, probably would. Because here's the thing. I mean, we got to see – I guess we did see some DeAndre Swift that we're going to see more of them without Adrian Peterson and without forget the head coach, but he's gone.
Patricia.
So Matt Patricia, yeah, which is why he's at 8, and it's probably fair. He's extremely talented. I guess you don't know the head coach in Houston either, so we'd have to look at that more in draft time. But it'd be right. I'm thinking right around that. The Swift, Jefferson, AJ is around where I would be probably putting him.
Okay.
But in drafts, I would imagine you could probably get him after Nick Chubb, after Diggs, probably.
Yeah, I'm because I'm looking at like Josh Jacobs, CEH. I mean, we're still trying to figure out like what that's going to look like. Mm-hmm. Sanders, you can make the case for, but I'm less enthusiastic about Zeke. Gibson, okay. Eckler, I mean, if it's ETN, I probably still want ETN like over him.
But remember, CEH kind of set a precedent that we're going to use going forward, right? Because he went to a fire spot, but he was the RB5 in a lot of people's pre-draft. So think about ETN, who's my RB1, and in a fire landing spot. So if you get the RB1 in an incredible landing spot, well, CEH was the 106. So where do you go from there? CEH was the RB5 pre-draft, went to the Chiefs in an incredible offense. CEH was very good. It was just a loaded class. And he skyrockets to 106 in startups. Right. So what do we do with ETN? Either we learned our lesson, maybe, hopefully people did, or they're going to take ETN at 106.
I can just see like his value slotting in like right in that general vicinity. And then from a startup perspective, I mean, that's essentially, I mean, you're talking about a second round pick at that point.
Yeah, you could probably get him. You could probably take the 101 in the second round of a startup. And I think that would be solid value.
Yeah. So that's probably where he'll wind up falling. I mean, if we fall into that same trap of good running back, good offense, I mean, and basically we can project him for 250 plus touches because he'd be the only person there. That's assuming that they don't bring DJ back. Right. I mean, and he just has to contend with Duke Johnson. Then yes, we can fall. I can see him like I can see his ADP like rising to that point. But then if landing spot changes, or let's say, if he winds up in Atlanta, almost the same thing. Sure. So it's like I would almost preach caution in that point. Like, should we still adhere or like use that or use those I guess data points in order to inform our decision, or would I guess trying to value him at that like a bit further down, so at that Joe Mixon, David Montgomery tier. If you put his value there, because I would definitely take him above those guys, but they're going in, the third round?
Right, late second, early third. So it's going to be an interesting year. I can't wait for these drafts to start rolling out because I want to see if we learned from CEH and JT. And again, that's not me saying that I don't think CEH is a bad player at all or a bad fantasy asset. And JT came on strong and looks incredible and maybe should have had his draft position that he had. But what I'm saying is at the time that that CEH was being drafted at 106, I was saying this is a terrible idea. There's no way that he hits value. And if he does hit value, you're not going to trade him for more than the 106 that you drafted him for. So why are you drafting him?
Yeah, you're paying for 2019 CMC, expecting 2019 CMC results.
Well, yeah, and if you're going to draft a running back at value, and knowing that they're not going to increase value, which is sometimes okay, like draft Derrick Henry or something a little bit later, or something like that. Like we talked about Derrick Henry, you're going to have him for 3 years, and you're never going to get fair value for him, so you're just going to play him. Okay, if that's what you're looking for, trade back and draft Derrick Henry, but don't take CEH at 106, where he's not going to increase value. You could get some value by trading back to Derrick Henry or something like that. But anyways, if CEH was at his, probably should have been, like for us, we got him at 206. That was good. We got him at 206 in a super flex, fine. But at 106, no thank you.
Absolutely. I think that's like Atlanta will be one of those like trap landing spots. Well, not necessarily a trap landing spot. I mean, Matt Ryan is fine. Calvin Ridley is great. We don't know assuming Julio Jones is back. I mean, the offense is still decent.
Right.
But when you say Atlanta Falcons, I mean, and you put Travis Etienne in that role, then it'll probably have the same effect as if he would have gone to the Chiefs, the Texans. I mean, it's just like, productive running back put in a good offense, and then it's just like value blows up from there.
True.
Which, in a sense, I mean, it winds up being that we wind up double counting, because if we're already projecting him for 250 plus touches, because the running backs that are currently there, I mean, Gurley's not going to be there. We don't care about Brian Hill or Ito Smith. We were already going to project him for 250 plus touches if he went to Atlanta. Then by saying he's going to Atlanta and moving him up into the 104, 105, 106 place you're double counting your projection at that point.
That opens up a whole new can of worms, because you essentially want to go through, and this might be an exercise I do this year, position by position, team by team. What teams am I really going to give a boost to? Because give a boost to these players for? Because, like you said, if I already have Etienne at the RB1, I should really only be boosting him for a few landing spots. And if it's going to be, my cutoff might be the Falcons. Okay, I'm not going to give them a boost because of the Falcons, because you're right, that might be double counting. They're a good, not great offense, and they're probably still going to have Todd Gurley in that scenario. So is that should I boost that? Well, last year we all did, but then that had us stuck with the bag at 106, and CEH having an underperforming rookie season, maybe not due to himself, but you got stuck with the bag because you double counted and the Chiefs were a landing spot that, yes, I would have given a boost, but he doubled his value.
Yeah, but then flip that question on its head. I mean, so say he goes to a bad landing spot. Say the Jets wind up drafting him for some stupid reason. Or let's say if the Bengals draft him and they're going to at least try and hold him for a year so they can get out of Joe Mixon's contract. I mean, or some dumb narrative. Let's say he winds up in a bad landing spot. Well, then what do you do? I mean, are we just then going to just completely pull him out of our ranks like altogether? And instead of having Etienne at the RB1, he then just falls to like the RB10 or the RB12?
Running backs are fragile, man. I've seen that. I mean, I've seen running backs drop because of landing spot. You're not going to drop them that far out. At some point, talent holds, but talent holds at maybe the 108 in Superflex instead of the 101. I would definitely see that if he gets and at that point, you and I are sitting here talking about an overreaction. I would have to say, and telling people to go get those late first round picks, in my opinion. So
because look at what happened with Akers. I mean, after the Rams drafted Akers, we knew he was going into at least a crowded situation, and his value still held at the 106, 107.
Well, kind of. I had a joke in one of the Trade Addicts leagues that I remembered when Stephon Diggs was having that massive game last week. I remembered that I tried to trade Stephon Diggs for almost every first because Cam Akers fell to 111. So at the 106, I started trying to trade Stephon Diggs straight up for Cam Akers. got all the way to the 111 and nobody wanted Stephon Diggs. I'm thinking, thank goodness they didn't want him because
Yeah, I guess that worked out for you.
yeah, that worked out great for me. All right, do you want to wrap us up, man?
Yeah, I mean, I love walking through like process. I mean, could be right, could be wrong, but I at least like being able to talk through it. And we definitely appreciate everybody stopping in and like asking some of those questions, so you can at least hear us ramble for a half hour, 45 minutes on it. But if you have differing opinions, drop us a like and comment, like in the, or at least drop us a comment. You might not like what we say, but at least drop us a comment, like in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer your questions and talk it out for some more. If you have more questions, always the chat. I mean, since we'll at least try and be here on a more regular schedule moving forward, Thursday nights ish. But if you have other questions that you can shoot us at the link that Adam just dropped, and we'll also have it in the show notes once we have everything up on YouTube, like later on today and tomorrow morning. Let's take one more. I mean, real quick.
I just thought.
Say super deep sleeper pick, 25th round of 15. Patman Hodgins, Trayvon Williams, all gone rounds ago. Was it 25th round? Phew. I'm assuming he meant Pittman. I don't know. Who's Patman?
I would think Pittman, yeah.
Dispersal draft?
Jeez.
I don't know. Give him a name, man.
I can't. And really put us on the spot when we don't know who's available. I don't know if we're going Kendrick Bourne deep, because I'll go Kendrick Bourne deep.
Or like Kadero Hodge deep. You want to take like Browns wide receiver 3?
Yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones deep.
There's a good one. We'll give him.
Go DPJ. Who's going to wind up? He's going to catch. Oh yeah, Desmond Pat. Thank you. See that is deep.
Yeah, draft Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne.
You're biased towards Kendrick Bourne.
Dude, I don't know where it started, but
you should probably get that checked out.
Draft Leonte Carew.
Is he even playing still?
I don't think so.
It's like, good Lord, man.
One of my first pieces was draft Leonte Carew.
Actually, you know what? Here's actually, you want to go super deep? Draft Auden Tate. I still think
fair.
I think he's a good receiver.
We won't mention that you are hooked into the Cleveland fan base, but
I would say that's a good one too. I would
think he's gone.
Yeah. I mean, we'll
Bourne's
see.
Available. Look, Bourne's not young anymore, but for some reason, those guys are always going down, and Kendrick Bourne is always catching third down passes. So,
wasn't they like the team preseason though, like a couple years ago? Maybe that's where
he always is, man.
Yeah.
Or that'd be cool too. Because Hunter Henry might leave.
Yeah.
He just got franchised. All right, we'll never get out of here. Let's do this.
We'll keep talking about like deep guys for the rest of the night. All right, but questions, hit us up in the link. Comments, drop them down below in the video. Come find us on Twitter if you disagree, agree, have more questions that you want us to ask, like on our next show. At Chris Allen FFWX for me, at AP Wildy for Adam. I mean, thanks y'all for stopping by. All love to DLF for keeping us on because we're back now for 2021. It's time to dive in some prospects, so let's do it. But y'all be safe out there, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Peace.